Hey guys, and welcome to this video where I'll be giving a comprehensive guide to the character Harec. I'll be covering practically everything I can think of, but first let's start with the absolute basics. Harec's ability is called Stalk, and it lets Harec teleport his body to a wall or ceiling for a limited time. The ability is actually very versatile and has many different uses on many different maps. Firstly, you hold your ability button and aim at a wall. A faint smoke and orange kind of marker will be visible on the wall to let you know that you can stalk to it. Otherwise, a cancel sound will play, meaning you're either too far away from the wall or the angle is off and you can't stalk to it. Once you stalk to a wall, you will stick to that wall where you can aim and fire normally, and you can use your movement controls to rotate yourself. There's a timer in the middle which, if it runs out, your stalk gets cancelled and you return to your original position. Alternatively, you can just press your ability button again and you'll stalk back to your original position. Also, it's a good idea to note that when you stalk, from where you originally stalked from there will be a smoke kind of a circular effect on the ground, which means antagonists and raiders you're against could set up traps on that marked area or just wait for you. So make sure to be careful about how long you spend on the wall so you don't accidentally get sent back, and always maybe keep an eye out for the area where you stalked from so that you don't get killed when you go back there. So Harec's first weapon is his default one. This one is called the Vendita Anima. Whilst aiming down the sights, you can use alternate fire to change the zoom, and you may also notice this damage multiplier in the middle. After a short delay whilst zoomed in on scope, the multiplier meter starts progressing, which literally just multiplies the damage your next shot does by a maximum of 3, depending on how many seconds passed as you're aiming down scope for. If you wait too long after it's reached 3, the multiplier expires. The Vendita Anima is a perfect weapon for beginners as it is accurate and it still retains decent damage. The only thing that bugs me about it is the long wait time on the multiplier. More often than not, enemy AI, as well as antagonists, can still get some decent damage on you whilst you're waiting for the multiplier to get up to 3. Being from the local faction, Harec sports only 60 HP as well, so that adds another layer of being careful whilst you're aiming down those sights. When you're stalking, enemies, like enemy raiders and antagonists, will see you with a red outline and you'll have a red name as well, so they can see you from a very long distance. Again, I don't think that works really well with the multiplier, but it's still a good weapon for beginners. It's useful, and while still being accurate, it still has decent damage when you use the damage multiplier. Harec's second common weapon is the Aura Mortis. This one is similar to the last one, but it's unique in the sense that it's silenced when firing, so when you fire it will not max out your stress meter and enemies won't be able to see your outline. I still have a kind of problem with that though, because enemies that you shoot at, raiders or antagonists for example, can see the tracer from your bullet and kind of just know where you shot them from anyway. I think it still has good PvE play, because enemies themselves, like the AI, won't be able to detect where they're being shot from if you're shooting from a long distance because of the silence. The Aura Mortis has up to 4 times damage when maxed out on the multiplier, so it's actually really good for bosses as well. I think this one is a bit like its default, but maybe a little bit better because the damage multiplier increases a bit more, and the silence works well as a raider, PvE, so that, you know, it does actually have a noticeable difference when you play against the AI. Harec's third and final common weapon is the Ferox Impetus. I have no fucking idea how to pronounce that. Now, this one is interesting because the gun is a magazine compared to all his other ones where Harec puts the bullet straight into the chamber. This means it has a capacity of 6 bullets before you need to reload, making this a good choice for an all-rounder weapon. The damage multiplier charges fairly quickly compared to the other 2 weapons, and you can fire all 6 shots like a semi-auto sniper whilst retaining the damage multiplier for each shot. This makes it useful against harder AI that takes several hits to kill, as well as bosses that can just tank all 6 shots really easily, and for antagonists that, well, simply you hit with all 6 bullets. It can get off quite a bit of damage quite quickly, so I think this one is maybe better for beginners, because if you miss one of the shots you don't have to wait up to like 2 seconds to reload, you have another 5 shots to make. But now we get onto the fun weapons, his 2 rare weapons. The first one is the Ignis Fugit, which is the embodiment of quickscoping in Spacelords. It starts charging its 2 times damage multiplier instantly as soon as you scope in. This means that killing shots, often against raiders in PvP, can be taken so quickly as soon as you start aiming. You aim in, the damage multiplier goes to 2 and you hit a headshot on an enemy antagonist, they will die, completely, instantly. Combining this with a stalk ability allows for quick scopes from the other side of the map, or just gaining new angles to snipe enemy raiders or antagonists with. Additionally, the weapon functions well as a PvE weapon too, because most enemies die to a fully charged headshot, minus some elites or the guys with rocket launchers for example. But utilizing this weapon and the stalk ability in conjunction with each other allows possibly the most deadly combos with Harec, as a raider or as an antagonist, in my opinion anyway. Finally, Harec's new sniper weapon is very unique, the Easter egg. This weapon has 2 fire modes, so let's start with the most familiar one. This is the normal shot mode and it fires just like his other guns. You charge the multiplier and you hit the shot. It's very slow and cumbersome, so I find it more of a last resort if the other fire mode isn't helping against particular enemies such as bosses. The other fire mode is his mine mode. The Easter egg fires a mine that sticks to any wall or floor surface, briefly showing its detection radius, which then disappears. If an enemy walks into that radius, the mine explodes, dealing damage several times to all enemies, or yourself if you're close enough, several times in a big spray of fire over a few seconds. Due to the mines having an explosion radius, you can hit enemies that are hiding behind cover with this by shooting near the floor next to them and killing or downing them behind cover while you're safely on the other side. If you shoot an enemy directly with the mine however, they will take a small amount of damage and the mine will automatically drop at their feet. Moving enemies will keep moving after the mine hits them, often dodging the explosion. Same goes for the moving squids an enemy within for example, so placing the mines takes a lot of thought to be putting them in front of enemies' paths instead, like you gotta predict where they're gonna be going. This weapon is a bit more complex but can be a lot more rewarding, especially for players using controllers on consoles that may find aiming with his other rifles a little bit trickier. Overall, Harec doesn't really have a bad weapon in my opinion, but he does have some very good ones. I'd say the best antagonist weapon would simply be the Ignis Fugit, if you are good enough with it. You can wipe teams very quickly. With the Ignis Fugit you can just get headshots for days. However, the Easter egg also works well for Antag too, especially against tankier teams and on maps where the raiders won't be moving around so much. His common weapons are still alright, and the silence aspect of the Aura Mortis is somewhat unique, but maybe not so much for antagonist. But for the role of Raider, I would definitely recommend the Easter egg again anyway, or the Ferox Impetus for its semi-auto capability. Now let's move on to using Harec's ability more effectively. Stalk is extremely versatile like I said, but not in the sense that it lets you camp and snipe. In fact, camping in one location and sniping from there makes Harec ever so much more vulnerable. Your red health bar and name will be visible to all enemy players who look in your mere direction, so the question is, if I'm not supposed to get to vantage points in camp, what should I do? Well, the most effective way of using Stalk is to use it very quickly. Mercury Steam themselves said that in the initial development of the game, Harec Stalk had a very long cooldown. They wanted to envision it as a once in a while ability that lets Harec take a certain location, bunker down on it and snipe from there. But when they began testing it, Mercury Steam quickly found out that Harec would just get shot to fuck as he camped on the wall, so they changed the cooldown to be very quick instead. Now their envision of him is as a ninja. Imagine jumping between walls really quickly, taking a shot each wall he goes to. That's how Harec is best played in PvP. Say you are busy stalking on a wall, far up in the distance, and you realise that returning to your original stalk position would put you right into the middle of a fuck ton of enemy raiders. The single best action to take when returning to that stalk is to roll, and whilst rolling, aim your ability at another wall and let go of the ability to activate it as soon as possible, just in time for the roll animation to end. With a bit of luck and well timing, you'll stalk to the next wall, which is your chance to take a single, maybe 2 if you're lucky, shots off at the nearby raiders waiting for you. If it fails, return quickly again before you get shot. Then roll as soon as you get back, and stalk again during that roll. You can often repeat this tactic against up to 4 raiders at the same time, and if you're accurate, you can just keep killing them one by one each time you stalk to a new wall. The one thing to watch out for is that the longer you stalk on a wall for, the longer the cooldown will be when you return. But if you only stalk on a wall for about 3 or 4 seconds, when you return the cooldown will be 0 anyway. Otherwise you can't do the roll tactic because your stalk won't be off cooldown. However, some skilled raiders will wait to grab you when you come back to your stalk position. So if you notice they keep going for grabs and succeeding, try punching immediately as you return instead, because punches counter grabs. Sometimes their grabs can be guaranteed to hit you when you stalk back if they time it purposely. but I guess you gotta give credit to them for being able to time it so perfectly. If you're against raiders like that, you best avoid stalking for too long and maybe hunt those people more first anyway. When rolling, the best walls to stalk to also depend on the context. Stalking to a closer wall right next to them may be harder to get a shot off, but it can really confuse them a lot more, and sometimes they'll be spamming punches because they think you're still right next to them. However, going to walls further away may be easier to hit shots off, but it puts you in a more vulnerable position because the stalk physically takes a longer time to reach there, and people may be able to time punches or grabs better when you return. It really depends on how you gauge the enemy's skill, and adapting yourself during the mission to play effectively against that. As Raider, however, your stalk is still a very useful ability in the context that I gave for Antagonist, but there aren't too many scenarios where you're going to be completely overrun by like 5, 6, 7 enemies. In a lot of maps, there's turrets where enemies sit on and do a shit ton of damage to your team. Stalk can be used to teleport behind them and shoot them in the head and return, disabling that turret for a while until another grunt gets on it, and you hopefully headshot him too using the exact same method. Looking for enemies that the rest of the team may have a hard time reaching or shooting is something that a Raider Harec should be doing most of the time during PvE, but always be wary of your lowly 60 HP as a local, because it only takes a couple punches for an enemy to get you. Also be careful that you don't headshot enemy snipers, because with most of the weapons you'll just kill them outright, and sometimes in some missions you really do need the Aleph for them. Again, headshotting the other elites, like the big guys who grab you and the commanders that call in airstrikes, it does take 2 to 3 headshots to kill them, but again, be careful that you don't kill them because sometimes you or a teammate might need the Aleph. The Easter Egg and the Ferox and Petus are easier downing elites though, so I would recommend those weapons if you're mainly focusing on being a Raider Harec. Now let's look at some useful cards for Harec. As a local, he has access to the local deck, which in my opinion has a very interesting common card with no rare variant called Vendetta. This card gives you 1 ammunition per kill, or when you have 5 Aleph, 1 ammunition per hit. I find this card to be super useful as Antagonist Harec because you never really manage to melee people except for in certain circumstances. Meleeing people would get you all your ammo back, however it's really difficult with Harec to do that. Using Vendetta effectively doubles your ammo pool because you should be headshotting people anyway and getting those kills, so you're gonna save maybe half of the bullets that you just fired and get them back with a Vendetta skill, until you can hopefully kill someone and get the ammo off of them. Another useful local card is Stoicism, which decreases the damage you take whilst you're down. I find it useful for Harec since he only has 60 HP, and it can get you back in the action quickly, and if you do get downed from a distance, say by an antagonist, it will take them longer to get to you because you'll get up so quickly, and you can start shooting them again. Another recommended card from the local deck is Merciless, where if you kill an enemy, your next shot will do 60% more damage. This favours Harec's sniper weapons a lot more than say like the Easter Egg, because it lets you chain damage from one kill to the next, guaranteeing that even if you maybe hit a body shot or you don't hit the headshot, you still might kill them with that 60% damage bonus anyway. However, this isn't a guide to tell you exactly what cards to get, they're just some recommendations that I use because they feel good for me when I use them. It's worth trying and testing out cards for yourself as well, so it's good to see what cards have different effects in-game for you and which ones complement your playstyle. As for cards from Harec's own deck, Methodical is the card I usually go for, because it simply increases his reload speed by 50% during the stalk, which often lets you get off 1 or 2 extra shots before enemies notice, AI and antagonists alike, know you're shooting at them. Another good Harec card is Revenge, especially with the Ignis Fugit, because it does 40% more damage within the first 2 seconds of stalking. So, remember that stuff I was telling you about earlier on, if you stalk to a wall and take a shot off really quickly with the Ignis Fugit which charges within 2 seconds, it will do an extra 40% more damage, guaranteeing that even a body shot will down most antagonists and raiders alike. Again, testing different combinations and seeing which cards fit you in your own playstyle is probably more effective than just copying what I recommend, but it's worth keeping them in mind in case you do like the idea of one of them. Now, thanks for watching the video everyone, I hope you learned a lot about Harec from this video. Maybe this can help those level 1 baby Harecs that keep feeding in my games from not feeding in my games. It takes practice to get the timing right with the stalk and dodging ability that I explained earlier, and it also just takes practice to get good with aiming with his weapons, and you're probably better off finding which one works for you. And if you're not that much of a precision and accuracy type of gamer, then maybe going for the Easter Egg for Harec, his new weapon, which you can check out my video that should just be the last one I uploaded, which is the exclusive reveal for the Easter Egg. That weapon might suit you a lot more as well. Overall, I think Harec has a slightly high skill ceiling, but he's not actually too hard to play when you get down to the basics of it. So I hope you enjoyed the video, everyone, and thanks for watching. So until next time, guys, see ya.